Matt Campbell and the Iowa State Cyclones went 7-5 in 2019, 7-6 after a bowl loss to Notre Dame. A step back after having back-to-back 8-win seasons the 2 years prior to that. They got Brock Purdy coming back on offense. Can they improve in 2020? Can they finally make it to a Big 12 title game? Can anyone win on the road in Iowa State? It's never been done before. We're going to find out in today's video when I give you my 2020 official Uncle Lou, the first one of the season, the official 2020 Uncle Lou preview and prediction for the Iowa State Cyclones. Let's go. And cut. All right, that was a minute's worth of work. So, where's the cookies? Good morning, it's Uncle Lou here. That's right, it's me, Uncle Lou, live for you on LouTube today. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Also, in addition to that as well, hey, subscribe to this channel if you're not already. Did you know that I post college football videos almost every single day of the year? Yeah, it's true. And some of them are even watchable. And believe it or not, a lot of these preview and prediction videos do fall into that category of being watchable. You know what else? Help me out. Share this video somewhere if you're an Iowa State fan, or hell, even if you're not, but you just like the video. I set a subscriber goal for myself once a year, this time of year, during the off season or the preseason when I start to do these preview and prediction videos. I haven't settled on a number yet for this year, but you guys can help me hit that number, whatever it ends up being, by sharing some of these preview and prediction videos that I do outside of YouTube. That's a huge help to anybody that does YouTube, by the way. If there's ever a YouTuber that you really enjoy watching, sharing one, some, or all of his videos somewhere outside of YouTube is a huge help to that YouTuber because it gets eyeballs on that video, on that YouTuber that maybe have not seen them before. So help me out. Give the video a thumbs up. Share it somewhere if you can. Have a good morning, too. All right, the Iowa State Cyclones 2020. Shout out to Harrison T over the Uncle Lou Patreon page. He suggested this preview and prediction video. And, of course, just like every year, all the preview and prediction videos I do this year will be suggestions from the people over on the Uncle Lou Patreon page. There's a link down in the description of this video that'll take you over there to the Patreon page if you want to get yourself signed up, or if you just want to check the page out, head over there. Link down in the description below. The live show link is down there too. Remember, I have a second channel now that I do the live shows. So if you've been wondering what happened to the live shows, they moved to a second channel. Link in the description. Thank you, Harrison T, for all your support over on the Patreon page. I hope you enjoy this Iowa State 2020 football preview and prediction. And don't forget, Slob Olympics is happening March 2021 in Atlanta, Georgia. Pause the video. Here's the flyer. If you want more information on it or whatever, email me, crazyunclelou@gmail.com. March 2021. Come hang out with some of your favorite college football YouTubers. All right, here we go. Like I mentioned at top, Iowa State did go 7-5 in 2019. 7-6 after losing to Notre Dame in the Camping World Bowl, I believe it was. Yeah, so 7-5 during the regular season. 7-6 after the bowl loss. Matt Campbell, head coach. One of the hottest young coaches, I think, in college football, even though they had a little bit of a disappointing year last year. He's been there. This will be his 5th year now. He inherited a really bad team. He went 3-9 his first year back in 2016, then won 8 games in 17, 8 games in 19, before the slight step back last year with the 7-win season in 2019. More good news, you get Matt Campbell and that staff back. More good news, you get probably... is Bryce Purdy the best quarterback in the Big 12? It's possible. We'll see how, what's his name does out at Oklahoma, Spencer Rattler. And I know, Texas is high on Ellinger. Bryce Purdy is no joke. This dude is a legitimate top 5, top 10 college quarterback in all of college football. The numbers that he has put up through his first couple of years at Iowa State is just insane, especially considering it's Iowa friggin' State. I don't have to remind you. I mean, this is a terrible program over the course of the last 40 or 50 years. Matt Campbell is nothing short of a miracle, what Matt Campbell has done turning this team around. Needs to improve in 2020 based off of what they did in 2019, but I think this is a legitimate top 25 team for 2020 that can beat some teams. I don't know if they'll be good enough to get to the Big 12 title game or win the Big 12, but they may ruin somebody else's chances of getting there. Listen to this. From 1996 to 2015, Iowa State had a winning record in the Big 12 only 4 times. So basically the 20 years before Matt Campbell got to Iowa State, they only had a winning conference record 4 times in that 20-year period. He's now done it 3 years in a row. The turnaround at Iowa State is real. Matt Campbell is real. Wouldn't be surprised. I don't think anybody would if somebody comes and snatches him up pretty soon and he gets an opportunity at maybe a bigger name Power 5 school. I know he says all the right things about it. I'm committed to Iowa State. I want to stay at Iowa State. But let's be real. Every coach says that right up until the minute they leave. It's just reality. So maybe he's at Iowa State for another 20 years. Maybe he leaves after this year. Point is, no one really knows. But there's a lot of schools out there who would be interested in a Matt Campbell. Now, before I break down the offense and the defense a little bit and then give you a game-by-game preview and prediction, how talented is Iowa State? Well, this is even more impressive if you're Matt Campbell. Listen to these last 4 recruiting classes going back to 2017. You look at the last 4 classes because that's going to be what makes up the majority of this roster, right? 2017, Iowa State had the 52nd ranked recruiting class in America, the 7th best recruiting class in the Big 12. 2018, 55. The 55th ranked class, 7th in the Big 12. 2019, improved a little bit, 46th ranked class, 6th in the Big 12. 2020, the 46th ranked class, again 6th in the Big 12. These are the numbers from 24/7 Sports. I'm not here to argue with you about whether their 24/7 is better or worse than Rivals or ESPN or anyone else who does the rankings. I just always use 24/7 for consistency purposes. So take that for what it's worth. So they're about the 6th or 7th most talented team in the Big 12, and they've been finishing as bad as they were last year, even at 7-5 in the regular season. That was good enough for 3rd in the Big 12. So they're overperforming under Matt Campbell based on the overall talent that the roster is able to recruit. Big expectations, high hopes, a lot of things to look forward to this year for Iowa State in 2020. Let's start with the offense. Of course, everyone knows quarterback Brock Purdy comes back. He'll be a junior this year, right? In my opinion, without doubt, one of the best 10 quarterbacks in all of college football. The argument can be made that he's one of the top 5 returning college quarterbacks in all of college football. And the argument can be made he's the best quarterback in the Big 12. I know everyone is high on Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma. Sam Ehlinger had a really good year 2 seasons ago. Not so much last year. Can he get back to form? But the point is, Brock Purdy has been an amazing quarterback for Iowa State, and I don't think anybody expects that to change in 2020. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is only 5 starters return on that offense. Now, if you're going to have a year offensively where you don't have a lot of offensive starters returning, and you're trying to spin it in a positive way, you can say, well, as long as we got the quarterback coming back, he can, everything else will work itself out. Well, you get your quarterback back. He's one of only 5, though. You led the Big 12 last year in pass yards per game. Let me repeat that. You led the Big 12 in pass yards per game. This is the Big 12 where everybody throws for what seems like 500 yards a game. You led the Big 12, Iowa State and Brock Purdy did, in pass yards per game with 306 passing yards per game. He has set, how many 21 school records Brock Purdy has set. Best offensive season, statistically speaking anyway, last year in Iowa State history. Huge expectations for Brock Purdy. Is he on the Heisman list? I think you can put Brock Purdy on some Heisman lists. Now, I'm not sure Iowa State can win enough games. I don't think Brock Purdy can really get to Heisman caliber numbers, but he's probably on some people's extended Heisman watch list for 2020. Some reason to be excited for the running back position, too. This freshman you had last year, this Breece Hall. Oh, copious notes, by the way. So you went, why does he keep looking down? Looking at my notes and that. Your uncle who studies these teams like it's his job. Because it is his job. Type about it. It's not a real job. Yeah, you seem angry about it. Anyway, this running back last year, this true freshman, Breece Hall, is that how you pronounce his name? Only started 8 games last year. But in those 8 games, he ran for 101.6 yards per game. 9 touchdowns. So he'll be a sophomore this year. Future looks bright for him. Tight ends. What is it with Iowa and tight ends? I'm talking about the state of Iowa. Was it 2 drafts ago? Yeah, not this draft that we just had in the NFL, but the 2019 NFL draft. Iowa, the Hawkeyes, had 2 tight ends taken in the first round of the same NFL draft. Unreal. Now you look at Iowa State's tight ends this year. Iowa State probably has the best tight end grouping in all of college football. Now you can find other tight ends around the Power 5 that may be better individually than any one person that Iowa State has, but as a group, this is probably the most talented tight end group in America. Last year, you have 3 tight ends you used last year. They all come back. They combined last year for 75 catches, 971 yards, and 10 touchdowns. And like I mentioned, they all 3 return. Kohler, Allen, and Soehner, Soehner, whatever the hell again. I don't name these players, so it's not, it's not my fault if I pronounce them wrong. Offensive line, you could have some issues there, particularly early in the year because of lack of experience. Now, I think Iowa State's offensive line will probably be more talented and definitely deeper this year, probably since Matt Campbell got there. But the experience could be an issue, particularly early in the year. You got to fill in 2 or 3 gaps along that line from last year, so we'll see how that goes. But overall, not very many people question Iowa State's offense. They're beginning to be sort of a typical Big 12 team where you almost expect them to go out and put out big offensive numbers week in and week out. Let's take a look at the defense. 9 starters back on defense. This is great news because honestly, defensively, Iowa State took a pretty big step back last year in 2019 versus what we saw him do in 17 and 18. Now, playing all those young players last year will reap benefits and rewards this year because you return 9 of those young guys from last year, and now they all have a whole season's worth of experience. So 9 starters back. So I think everybody expects the defense to perform better overall than what we saw last year just based on the number of players or the number of starters that you have returning. You were 89th on third downs last year. That's not good. Most other categories you ranked around the 50th range. You got to improve on that third. That's the money down there. You're not going to get where you want to go if you can't get off the field on third down. You got to improve on that. This defensive end is a senior, 5th-year senior, I think. Barley is his name. Is he the one that was hurt last year? Didn't play, so now he's back for a 5th year. But he's 3rd in all of America amongst active players in total sacks with 18.5. So the guy can get after the quarterback, defensive line, experience, talented. You got 3 linebackers that played a ton last year that are coming back. You got now you do have to fill some holes in the back end of your defense in the secondary. But you got the Greg Eisworth, is that his name? All Big 12, 2 years in a row now. So he's sort of your stud back there. You're going to be better defensively in 2020 for sure than you were in 2019. How much better can that defense be? Like I said, there's not a lot of questions when it comes to Iowa State anymore as far as are they good or are they bad. They're definitely a good team now. The question with Iowa State now becomes, can they compete for something other than recognition of being a good team? In other words, can they make a Big 12 title game? That's honestly the next step for Iowa State. I don't think anybody expects Iowa State to win the entire Big 12 this year, although anything is possible in the world of college football. We see weird things happen all the time without question. Oklahoma, Oklahoma, I think, the clear favorite. And you've got some good teams in the Big 12 this year that could compete for that second spot. Iowa State is one of them. We'll see. Iowa State, I like Kansas State this year. Is Texas going to rebound? How far off will Baylor fall? Will West Virginia get back to where they were a couple of years ago? So a lot of things going on in the Big 12. Iowa State, a consistent team, lots of returning talent on this team, maybe the best quarterback in the Big 12 in Brock Purdy, high expectations. Iowa State has only lost a game by 14 points or more once in the last 39 games, and that just so happened to be in the bowl game last year against Notre Dame. So even the games that Iowa State has been losing, they've been hanging in there. So have they beat Oklahoma lately? No. Have they beat Iowa lately, a rival? No. But they've been hanging in there with these teams. It's not like they're getting blown out. Can they win a couple of those games this year that they've been coming up short on in years past and get to 9 or 10 wins and maybe a Big 12 title game? Let's find out. Here's the schedule. I'm going to put it up on the screen now. We'll do this the same way I've been doing this for years. I'm going to go through the schedule game by game, and I'm going to tell you who I think is going to win and why. If there's a game I think Iowa State's going to lose, I'll do my best to explain my reasoning. All right? The end goal really is to try to figure out the overall record. Figuring out exactly who a team will lose to becomes a lot harder. But we're going to give it our best shot here. All right, you start out at home, September 5th, lower classification opponent, South Dakota. You'll win that game. If for some reason you don't, scrap the season. You got no business being mentioned competing for the Big 12, or all this hype that I've been giving you in this video is totally unwarranted if you go out and pull a Tennessee and lose to somebody like South Dakota in week 1. I don't expect it to happen. I'm giving you a W. Now, week 2. Could this be the biggest game of the year for Iowa State? I don't think so. I know it's the rivalry game against Iowa. You're on the road. You got to play them there. Iowa's a tough team. You haven't beat them. They beat you. I think they've beat you 5 times in a row. They own you all time. I think you're 22-45 against them all time. And like I mentioned, you've lost to them the last 5 years in a row. They finished in the top 25 last year. You finished just outside of the top 25. I've already said I think you will finish in the top 25 this year. This game's early in the year, and I think this game's played early in the year every year, isn't it? Pretty sure that it is. This in-state rivalry game, Big 12 versus Big 10 matchup here, Iowa State. Like I mentioned, on the road this year at Iowa. Iowa's got some questions at the quarterback position. They've got some defensive things they need to tighten up. This game's early in the year. They beat you 5 times in a row. Streaks are made to be broken. Iowa State gets the win on the road at Iowa. Starts out 2-0. Momentum rolling. You have another home game then, non-con against UNLV. I'm going to give you a win there. I guess they're not a terrible team, but come on, they got no business competing with you. You should win that game. Now, the Big 12, of course, plays a round-robin conference schedule. Every team in the Big 12 plays every other team. So you've got these 3 non-con games, and yeah, there's 10 teams in the Big 12. So you figure that out. Let me know what you come up with. So you have the first 3 games, non-con. I got you starting out 3-0. September 26th, first Big 12 game of the year. You host Texas Tech. I think you beat Texas Tech. I do think Texas Tech will be a little bit better this year than they were last year. They've been one of the most inconsistent teams in the Big 12 over the last few years. They go out, put 50 points on the board, and can't score the next week. Their defense is a mess. I think you handle them at home. You finish September 4-0. Probably, in my opinion, ranked in the top 15 at that point. Definitely the top 20. Could be top 15 after the first month of the season. Now, calendar turns to October. Back-to-back road games you start here in October. So the good news, the first one is at Kansas. The bad news, the second one is at Oklahoma State, which is where you'll catch your first loss. I do think you'll beat the Fighting Les Miles. Kansas needs at least another 2 recruiting classes to get anywhere close to being able to compete with any meaningful Power 5 team. I think you go on the road and handle Kansas without a problem. Back-to-back road games, always tough. Back-to-back road conference games, even tougher. And in my opinion, Oklahoma State is a lot like Iowa State this year. 8, 9 wins, 7 wins, whatever. Everyone's waiting on them to take another step, finally beat Oklahoma, maybe make a Big 12 title game, that kind of thing. Will it be this year for Oklahoma State? I don't know that. You have to play them there. I think this will be a great game. This will probably be a close game. If I had to put a spread on this game right now, it's probably going to be 5, 6 points or less, one way or the other. Hard to go undefeated. I'm just going to give you a loss here on the road at Oklahoma State. You turn around then and have to host Oklahoma. I have to give you another loss there. Not that I don't think you're capable of beating Oklahoma. I do think you're capable of beating Oklahoma. This is sort of a tough place that this game falls on the schedule for you. You have your bye week after Oklahoma. Sure would be nice if you had this bye week between Oklahoma State and Oklahoma instead of after Oklahoma. So I have you dropping back-to-back games after starting out the season 5-0. That puts you at 5-2 heading into your bye week. You come out of your bye week and you host Kansas State. Another tough game to figure out. Kansas State, Iowa State, Oklahoma State. 3 teams that I think could surprise a lot of people this year. Now, the odds that more than one of them end up being a surprise is not good because they play each other. But if one of those 3 teams can beat the other 2, I think that team is going to have a good chance to end up in the Big 12 title game. But I've got you beating Kansas State at home coming off a bye week. That works in your favor there. You get 2 weeks to prepare, a week to rest after what could be a tough Oklahoma matchup the week before your bye week. I gave you a win here at home against Kansas State, another team that I'm real high on, particularly their coaching staff. But they may be a year or so away from getting the talent in there that coaching staff needs to really compete. That coaching staff came from North Dakota State, so they clearly know how to win at a high level. Then you go on the road and play TCU. I gave you another win here. TCU is probably the only team in the Big 12 that consistently puts effort into the defensive side of the ball. Will that be the case in 2020? I don't know. Like Texas Tech, TCU is a team that's been a little bit too inconsistent for my liking over the last few years. I like TCU in general. I like Gary Patterson. Like I said, he's one of the few administrations or coaches in the Big 12 that year in and year out puts effort on the defensive side of the ball. You do play them there. This is a toss-up game, honestly, in my opinion, one that could go either way. Now, I can say the same thing about Kansas State, where I gave you a win. I could say the same thing about Oklahoma State, where I gave you a loss. A lot of these, in my opinion, are toss-up games, but somebody's got to win. Somebody's got to lose. I had you losing the toss-up at Oklahoma State, winning the toss-up at Kansas State. I'm going to give you a win on the road at TCU as well. So you're rolling back-to-back wins coming out of your bye week, Kansas State at home, TCU on the road. Then you host Baylor. Baylor was great last year. Well, maybe great's not the right word, but they were really good last year. They lose their coaching staff to the Carolina Panthers in the NFL. They lose some talent. I don't think they can recover from that in 1 year. I think you get the win at home against what will still be a pretty good Baylor team, but not the Baylor team we saw last year. You're stacking up wins here. On the road at Texas. Right now, I would put this in the toss-up category too. I don't know what Texas is going to show up. I don't know if the 2018 version of Texas is going to show up to beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, or I don't know if the we're back version of Texas is going to show up that went out and laid an egg on 5 separate occasions last year en route to a 7-5 regular season. I honestly have no idea. You have to play them there, though. Unfortunately, I gave them a win and you a loss, your 3rd loss of the season. You finish things up the day after Thanksgiving, a weird Friday game. Be careful about this game here. It's against West Virginia. It is at home. That benefits you. We see a lot of weird things happen during the course of the college football season on Friday games. I think you're a better team than West Virginia. I think you'll be favored in this game. I like your coaching staff over what they have, and I'm picking you to win this game. But this is one of those games that you could look back on in the offseason and wonder, how did we lose to West Virginia? Don't let that happen. It's the day after Thanksgiving. It's weird. That whole week's schedule is kind of messed up because of Thanksgiving. Now, on top of that, you're playing the game a day early on Friday after a tough road trip the week before at Texas. This is going to be a tricky game, but I gave you the win. That puts you at 9-3 for the regular season. Will that be good enough for Iowa State to get into the Big 12 title game with a probable rematch against a team like Oklahoma? I don't know. Like I said, I do think 9-3 is a good enough record to make the Big 12 title game in 2020. But it's going to depend who you win, who you beat, and who you lose to. Because I think you could have somebody like Kansas State hovering around 9 wins. You could have somebody like Texas hovering around 9 wins. You could have somebody like Oklahoma State hovering around 9 wins. So it could come down to some sort of weird tiebreaker scenario on who gets that second spot behind Oklahoma in the Big 12 title game. It could be Iowa State. You could easily win one of these games that I've got you losing and maybe even go 10-2. Of course, you could lose 1 or 2 that I've got you winning and be sitting there at 7-5 again. I don't think that's going to happen. If you have not watched Iowa State in the last 2 years, watch them play this year. I like Matt Campbell as a coach, and Brock Purdy is a lot of fun to watch on Saturday afternoons. He's a hell of a quarterback. He's going to put up ridiculous numbers this year, and Iowa State's going to be a dangerous team. I've got you at 9-3. We'll see if that's good enough to get into the Big 12 title game. All right, that's it. The first official Uncle Lou preview and prediction video for 2020 is in the books. What'd you guys think? Let me know down below, which games am I absolutely wrong about, right? There's a few on there that if you tell me I'm wrong, I won't have a problem with that. Some of those games that I consider to be toss-ups, they can go either way. So it won't hurt my feelings at all if you tell me I was wrong on those particular games or whatever. So let me know. Who's next coming up? I think Florida is the next preview and prediction video. So we'll have that up either tomorrow or Wednesday. I'm going to try to do 4 preview videos for you this week. The 4 that will be coming up this week: Iowa State, Florida, Oklahoma, and North Carolina. Those are the 4 on deck for this week. We're going to run this series right up until the point where college football season actually starts. So you get 3 months worth of these videos. My goal is to do between 20 and 25 a month. If I can get that done, that'll be somewhere between 60 and 75 of these preview videos. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up. The thumbs up thing helps me a ton. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. It moves it higher up the YouTube search list. Share this video with your friends. Share it somewhere: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever the case. Go knock on your neighbor's door. Tell them to subscribe to Uncle Lou. 2. Have a good morning.